Ukraine is trying to convince Belarus to embrace Lukashenko, more radioactive waste from Westinghouse, and Moscow launches its liar, liar, pants on fire diplomacy against Brussels. Welcome to StopFake, the place where we dissect Russian disinformation about Ukraine and a little more. So let's get to it. During the anti-Lukashenko protests in Belarus, a popular disinformation narrative was being circulated that claimed Ukrainians were intimidating the people of Belarus with the fallout of Maidan and color revolutions, telling their neighbors that they will soon long for life under Lukashenko. Sociology, however, tells a different story. According to a recent poll conducted by the Kyiv International Institute of Sociology, 45.3% of Ukrainians support the protests in Belarus against the results of the last presidential election, while only 31.1% support Lukashenko. Writing on the website Ruskaya Vesna, the journalist Ilya Novitsky alleges that the West continues hoping to turn Minsk into what Kyiv was 6 years ago, that Polish secret services are supervising the Belarus opposition, and that ordinary Ukrainians are dissuading the people of Belarus from trying to overthrow Alexander Lukashenko, warning them about what will happen to their country if they make this fatal mistake. Novitsky goes on to write that Ukrainians are telling friends in Belarus that they will end up as labor migrants in Poland, that their standard of living will drop, and that they will be unable to travel to Russia. But Novitsky doesn't once explain who is making these claims and what data these conclusions are based on. Novitsky claims, quote, "Overthrow Lukashenko and you will be beggars. This is what Ukrainians are telling Belarusians." Now, according to the poll conducted in September by the Kyiv International Institute of Sociology, 45.3% of Ukrainians support the Belarusians in their protest against the last presidential elections held in that country, while 31.3% support Alexander Lukashenko, the president of Belarus who has held office for 26 years. Ukrainian respondents living in central and western Ukraine tend to support the Belarus protesters, while those who live in the south and east of the country tend to support Lukashenko. Another poll conducted in December 2019 by the Razumkov Center asked Ukrainians if they want to return to Ukraine as it was before 2014. 39% said no, 20% said probably not, 15% said yes, they would want to return to pre-2014 Ukraine, and only 12% said probably yes. Russian fakes predicting a second Chernobyl in Ukraine began spreading immediately after Ukraine signed a new contract with Westinghouse for the supply of American nuclear fuel for the western Ukrainian Rivne power plant. Newsfront menacingly predicted, quote, "The transformation of Ukraine into a vast radioactive zone is only a matter of time." Now, on September the 30th, Westinghouse signed a new contract with Ukraine's Energoatom, the state company overseeing the operation of Ukraine's 4 nuclear power plants, including for nuclear fuel for the Rivne power plant. This agreement continues the long-standing partnership between Energoatom and Westinghouse, which began way back in 2000. Currently, Ukraine uses Westinghouse nuclear fuel in 6 of its reactors. Starting next year, another reactor at the Rivne plant will also be powered by uranium fuel provided by Westinghouse. Ukraine's efforts to diversify its sources of nuclear fuel supply have been ongoing for the last 20 years. The southern Ukrainian nuclear power plant in Zaporizhia was the first to be fully powered by Westinghouse-supplied fuel, resulting in a completely safe, reliable, and efficient operation. Russian media cite the example of the Czech Republic in their arguments against Westinghouse, claiming that in 2006, the country abandoned its plans to use American nuclear fuel for its plants. But this claim is distorted and a little bit inaccurate because back in April of 2019, the Czech state energy company Czech began using Westinghouse fuel in reactors at the Temelin nuclear power plant. Westinghouse fuel assemblies account for only 3% of the total number of fuel assemblies in Temelin, and its launch was preceded by complicated licensing processes that lasted over 3 years. Since Ukraine embarked on a fuel diversification program, Russian media have launched a relentless disinformation campaign attacking Ukraine's efforts at energy independence. The number of attacks increased dramatically after 2014 when Ukraine signed a number of energy agreements with other countries, including an agreement expanding cooperation with Westinghouse. Russia's foreign ministry called the agreement unacceptable and dangerous. The most likely reason for Russia's disinformation attack on Ukraine's efforts to diversify its nuclear fuel supply is because Russia stands to lose out economically as the contracts go to other reliable suppliers, so they revert to nuclear scare tactics, not unlike unlike the Russian threats to turn off gas supplies to Ukraine and Europe. But 20 years of operation have shown the Westinghouse nuclear fuel assemblies to be efficient and safe. Back in August, the European Union issued a statement on the occasion of the European Day of Remembrance for Victims of Stalinism and Nazism that caused Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova to accuse the European Union of myopia, of historical revisionism, and of falsifying European history. Zakharova said, quote, "The European Union is again recreating its revisionist thesis that it was the non-aggression pact signed by Germany and the Soviet Union on August 2nd, 1939, that plunged Europe into darkness. In the usual manner of such ridiculous statements, not a word is said about the predatory and misanthropic designs of the Nazi regime or the decisive role of the Soviet Union in their victory over fascism. But Vladimir Putin's Russia is a Russia that is proud of its totalitarian past. It's difficult not to come to that conclusion, even with just a cursory review of what Putin said in the past, as well as statements by others associated with the Russian government. For example, Nikolai Patrushev, the chairman of Russia's FSB security service, the former KGB, gave an interview with Komsomolskaya Pravda about an odd day that is recognized on December the 20th as the Day of the Chekist. Patrushev said, quote, "We have not abandoned our past. The history of Lubyanka in the past century, whatever it may be, is our history. Because Russia has embraced the glorification of its totalitarian past, it should come as no surprise that efforts to obfuscate the truth about this dark chapter have become institutionalized. For example, Vladimir Putin emphasized in his message to Russia's Federal Assembly on April 25, 2005, quote, "First of all, we must acknowledge that the collapse of the Soviet Union was the largest geopolitical catastrophe of the century. For the Russian people, it became a real drama. Note that for Putin, living in a police state is not a drama. And it's not drama that the regime produced millions of victims. The fall of the regime, according to Putin, was the drama." Zakharova continued in the same vein as Putin, saying, quote, "We would like to remind fans of historical speculation that Europe began to plunge into darkness not on August the 23rd, 1939, but much earlier when the choice was made in Western capitals to appease the aggressor country, the apogee of which was the 1938 Munich Agreement." Ms. Zakharova conveniently forgets that the darkness she refers to descended in 1917 and already in 1920 attempted to flood all of Europe, but was stopped on the outskirts of Moscow for almost 20 years, and later, systematically, with the help of treaties and pacts such as the Rapallo Treaty of 1922, that darkness again tried to engulf Western Europe regardless of losses, which can be counted in the millions. Even before the Munich Agreement and even before the policy of appeasement in relation to Nazi Germany, Europe was largely deaf to the lives of the people being destroyed in Eastern Europe. Countries like Russia that specialize in historical revisionism are quick to lecture Western countries about historical speculation, especially when other countries take measures to atone for their past. Europe, however, has learned the lessons of history and remembers how the policy of concession to Hitler ended. That's why Western capitals recognize August 23rd as Black Ribbon Day to commemorate the victims of communism and Nazism. Despite millions of euros allocated by the Kremlin for propaganda, Europe has developed a healthy resilience to policies of appeasement towards dictators like Vladimir Putin. That's it for this week. Stay safe and always be on the lookout for fakes. Remember, wearing a mask, washing your hands, and social distancing will protect you from the coronavirus, but critical thinking will protect you from Russian disinformation. And if you spot any disinformation about Ukraine, forward it to us for a truth autopsy. I'm Marko, and this is Stop Fake. Thanks for watching.